Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to uplift and inspire others. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. If you are new to this podcast, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, and share. Let's jump right in. Sorry, wrong video. Here's the right one. I have several brands, so sometimes I misclick the video. I certainly hope that you guys are having a fantastic Tuesday. And this right here is evidence that not everything goes according as planned, but you just got to keep moving forward. And that is actually a great segue to the female that I'm going to be introducing to you today. Her name is Jessica. Jessica is a vibrant, free spirit born and raised with a religious pastor mom and dad. The rules were strict, and she found herself rebelling at a fairly young age. At age 14, her parents divorced, and around that time, she found herself heading down a path of hanging around the wrong people, smoking weed, and soon drugs and alcohol. This is a story of relapse, rape, homelessness, and so much more. Jessica is here to talk about her story, the mistakes she has made, and how she is using her story and all of the mishaps that went along with it in order to help others who are struggling now. She is a mother. She has an amazing career, and she is here to shed some light on this topic that so many people deal with. Hello, lady. How are you? Oh.
I'm
There we
good.
go.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to sit down with us and share this story and everything that's happened with you during your journey. I appreciate you. I know that you're a busy woman. You got a lot going on.
Yes, ma'am. I'm
Yes.
really happy to be here, though, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Of course, of course. So listen, I love to start the podcast. This whole platform is based around storytelling. It's based around how so many of us have a crazy story, a challenging story, and how important it is to share, those vulnerable parts of our lives in order to inspire, uplift other individuals who are right now going through those struggles that you went through. So, if you don't mind, kind of opening up about your childhood, how this whole thing started.
Okay. So growing up, I was raised in like a family, a very religious family. I grew up Baptist Pentecostal, so everything was pretty strict, and my dad was a pastor. He was a minister at the time. He had his own church, so growing up, it was very, you know, we were in church constantly. We always had, this a reputation that we had to withheld and hold up, and this paint this perfect picture family. And so it was very strict, it was very structured. And my dad just didn't he didn't play no games. So he just really wanted to shelter me, really. He wanted to shelter me from things. So there was always like that barrier there. I just grew up in a home with my brother. So there's three of us, but I grew up with my brother, so it was just me and one other sibling at the time. And my dad was a preacher, but he was also like a mechanic, and my mom worked at a sewing factory. So it wasn't rich or anything like that. Middle class, just getting by. So that's pretty much the gist of kind of how it was. most of my childhood.
That's awesome. Is your brother older or younger than you?
My brother is older, so we're like I think like 7 or 8 years apart.
Wow.
So he always had his own thing going on. It was usually just me at the house, and I didn't have very many like friends, outside of church. Those
Yeah,
were my friends, those were my people. I was really only kind of like allowed to go to their house, and it was just like I said, just very kind of you kind of always knew what to expect. Like it
yeah,
was just like the norm.
yeah,
So
definitely. No, I totally get that. I know you're a mom. How many kids do you have?
I'm a mom of three girls. So
Three
I have
girls.
I have my youngest is 5, and my two oldest are 10 and 11. So I had them pretty close.
That's awesome.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
I know you're closest to your youngest daughter. I
Yes.
see her on Facebook a lot. You guys are so cute.
Yes. Well, so the other two actually grew up in the household with their father and their grandmother.
Got it.
I guess maybe that'll come later on in the story, but yeah, they were not really raised with me up until now. We are starting to try to rebuild and restore that relationship.
That's awesome. Good for you. It all takes time, you know.
Yeah.
It all takes time and we're all on our own journey and that's just what your journey looks like. And I love that you're working on, fixing all of that and reconnecting.
Hmm.
That's awesome. Um so from what I remember, your kind of, the thick of your story started pretty young. I think you said you were 14.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, can you kind of, take us through that, starting at 14 and what that kind of looked like to you and the journey of, experimenting with different things and, how that whole thing went for you?
Absolutely. So I was probably like around the age of 13 and 14 years old, where I started, my rebellious self. And I did. I rebelled, and I feel like I got to an age where, at that age, we tend to start changing. A lot of things started to take place because that's when you're reaching your teenage years, and there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of, pressure and peer pressure and things going on around you. And like I said, not really being at a young age, not being able to, I guess, really live, maybe a normal childhood. My parents divorced at 14. And so that was very difficult for me. Um, at the time, I didn't think that it was a problem, but now that I'm older and I can look back on these things, that's when I realized, that's kind of what everything stemmed from. So when they divorced, I didn't, my dad left the home. And so like I didn't have like that male figure, like that man figure in my life, that I feel like, every daughter or every little girl wants. So they separated, and it was just kind of me and my mom. My mom was working, she was doing her thing. So, like, friends became my family, and it's not, because my mom didn't love me or didn't give me attention or give me what I needed. It was just because, that's just what I clung to. What I clinged to was those friends and those friendships. And so, I didn't always choose the right people to hang around. It started that way, but, I started skipping school. I got around friends that were smoking weed. So, I got curious. I started experimenting myself. So, it was kind of looking for something to feel that void, that pain that I felt. Um, from going through the, divorce and stuff. I guess maybe, feeling neglected and maybe feeling like things were my fault. So because you tend to blame yourself for things too, and so I just, started kind of filling that void with weed And it continued like that for a couple of years. I barely graduated high school. Like my senior year, they were like 2 weeks before graduation, they were like, "You are not going to graduate if you don't pick up your grades and do this and this." So I did it, and I did it because my mom really pushed me to. I did it for her, really. She was like, "You're gonna graduate. You're gonna graduate. You're gonna do this." So I graduated, but barely. And so it's kind of like the we thing continued for a while. I was dating, I was in different relationships, but I tend to get into relationships with men that were older than me, and twice the age that I was. So I was dating a guy that was much older than me, and he was a drug dealer. And so I actually left my mom's house and, went and moved in with him and lived that lifestyle.
How old were you?
By this age, I was probably like around 17.
Wow.
Yeah, I was at 17. My mom, till she came one day and she found me, and, she drug me back to the house, but I left. And, so I don't know. I was looking for like that comfort, and so I thought that that's what I wanted. I thought that that's what I needed. And so, like, I was dating this guy, and he was, selling drugs and, you know, crack and weed. I don't know if I can say that, but he was just doing that life. So I got into that type of lifestyle, and that fast pace, the fast money and stuff. And I was just smoking weed at that time, but then I got around a different crowd of people. And I still wasn't really with my mom. I was just kind of hopping from place to place, living with different friends and things like that. And so I started doing pills. I started with like lower tabs and Percocet and things like that. And I just started doing that for a while. I thought that, that just kind of was my escape. That was my escape from, reality. That was my escape for like my mental pain, my physical pain. And, I did that. But go ahead. Do you have a question?
I was gonna ask, this is, when you and I first started talking, and I appreciate you opening up and being so vulnerable with me and your life story and the journey that you've been on. But, while you're speaking right here, I'm actually kind of, viewing this from the standpoint of the parents whose biggest fear is their son or their daughter, falling into this, um, you know, trap, I guess, of drugs. Now looking back, you're older, you're sober, you've got a straight and narrow, mindset, and you're focused, you know what you want. Now looking back, like, what do you think? Obviously you love your parents, you love your mother. It wasn't your mother's fault. Um, but like, where was your mind at? What would have maybe like helped a little bit? Like somebody reaching out, because that's a thing, parents have children who are right now kind of like going down that journey, and they're watching it, they're seeing it, and they're grasping for like, what can I do? What could I
Mhm.
possibly do? Do you have any advice on that? Like,
Well, to be honest with you, my mom at the time was completely naive. My mom really didn't like, she didn't know, like, she knew certain behaviors, but at the time she didn't know that I was having this drug problem. To her it was just like, I was just, seeking attention and love and stuff out of this relationship that, she felt, obviously was wrong. But she didn't really know, like, so my mom did, she tried to help, she tried to intervene, she tried to sit down and talk to me and stuff. It was more like I pushed her away, I pushed her away. I didn't keep, a connection with my father. I didn't really reach out to him. So, to be honest, it wasn't really like anything, that they didn't do. It was more like I kind of, I pushed away. I didn't, accept, the love that they were trying to give me, or, the help and stuff at the time. It
Yeah.
was just like, I don't know. I think you get to a point where you're just so consumed and so distracted into like what you're doing that you don't really think at the time. You're only like you're on like a one track mind. You're like, this is what's helping me, so this is what I'm gonna run with, and this is all I see, and this is all I know.
Is
So
there anything that anybody could have done? Like, could anybody have swayed you in a different direction? Maybe not your parents, but
well,
you don't know?
I don't know. I really don't know. I really can't say. Maybe as far as, parents, I would only say that, maybe, you continue to be persistent and consistent in situations like that, like don't, maybe not allow, the child to really make those choices. I guess maybe taking more control of the situation. But I feel like, once you get to like a certain age and stage of life and in addiction, it's like, you at the time you kind of you see and you know what's going on around you, but like I said, you're not focused on those type, you're not focused on those. You're selfish, really, because you're just like, what, this is what's helping me, this is what's helping me cope, this is what's numbing my pain. And so it doesn't matter, what you think or how you feel. What
Yeah.
matters is me. This is
Yeah.
how I feel, and this is how I'm dealing with it. So it wasn't, anything really at the time until much later on, then, rehab and jail and things like that took place. And those all, instilled, things into my recovery that I'm able to take with me now and that I've been able to learn from.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until like I landed in jail, because I went and stole something that didn't belong to me and sold it to the pawn shop, that I went to jail. And, events like this began to take place. And with each, each time, was another lesson, was like another wake up call for me.
Yeah. Speaking of that, again, highlighting, talking to, individuals who are, in this situation now or at the cusp of it. Do you mind sharing just some of the unfortunate, things like you mentioned jail? What are some of the things that a individual can kind of fall into without
Hmm.
necessarily knowing it? They're starting to dabble with drugs. They're starting to realize there's some sort of an addiction. Um, Not, I don't want to say what are some of the things they can look forward to, but in a
Hmm.
negative context, what's the journey? What was the gross, the negatives that you had to endure because of this addiction?
Right. Well, obviously there was many consequences. It's just like, it's the same thing as when we do good things and we make good choices. There's good rewards. So obviously I wasn't making the best choices. So there were consequences. I went to jail several times because I had to support my habit, right? I wasn't really working, or if I did have a job, I didn't hold one long enough, to really be able to afford to keep up with such a habit. So, I would do things, I would steal, I would steal from stores, or, steal and sell it maybe to someone, or take it to a pawn shop. And so I went to jail. I was offered drug court, so I did take drug court for a while, but I didn't make it. I
Wow.
failed several UAs. I just didn't, I guess I just wasn't ready. Like I felt like I was ready, but I didn't take action. I didn't take it seriously. So after, going to jail obviously several times, and I had nothing. I didn't, I didn't have my own place. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a job. So, I was bouncing around. There was a point where, I was kind of homeless because I was living with, in and out of my mom's house, but she got tired of me always, the lying and the taking from her and things like that, that she got to the point where she's like, I can't continue to be your crutch. And so she had to let me go. And so, like, I really, at the time, didn't have nowhere to go, so I was staying in hotel rooms. I was doing things to support my habit that obviously I'm not proud of. To support it, to continue to feed that addiction. And so I went to rehab as well. I went to 2 8-month long rehabs, and then I
Wow.
went to another 2 rehabs that were more like short term. And so there's nothing good that comes from it. It's very repetitive. It's like that repetitive cycle that the more you continue and the longer you go, like the worse it gets. It never gets better. It
Yeah.
just got worse and worse for me. Thank goodness, I didn't get exposed to you know, diseases and things, because obviously that's a factor too that you have to worry about when you're out there. Am I going to get AIDS? Am I going to, get, hepatitis and things like that? Those are always, factors that play into it as well. So
100%.
it was very hard. Now I have a record, so I can't just go and really get any job. So I'm lucky, I'm blessed to do what I do now.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
As far as you mentioned a few rehabs. Um, what caused those relapses? What made you go back to that?
Well, it was just so I wanted to change. I knew because see, this is the thing, what was instilled in me at a young age, you don't ever forget. It's always there. That was the root of me, so it was, even though I was living this lifestyle, still deep in my heart, I knew, that this is not what I wanted. This is not that I always knew, like, I always still like held on to like that hope and that faith that, one day I was gonna overcome this, so it was like, I struggled, but I was like, I was determined to still, be this, this woman that I wanted to be, that I admired. And, what was your question again? I got
We were
off
talking about
track.
relapse.
The relapse, yes. So before I actually got clean, because I've been clean now for 5 years. I did relapse several times, and I guess it was like, so like I said, I had the tools that I needed. I wanted change, but I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. Like, I wanted to let go a little bit of it, but then I still wanted to hold on to this other part. Cause like I said, it was a lifestyle for me. So I became used to just being this way. And so it was like, I just kept, I would do okay for a little bit, but I wasn't dealing with the root of the problem, which is what I'm talking about now, because there's obviously, for me, there was an issue. It wasn't like it just started and one day I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go and get high and, choose this way of life. It was just like there was a root, there was an issue within me, emotionally, physically, spiritually, that I had to fix. So until I was able to deal with that, then my life was not able to change completely. And I'm not going to say that, it's perfect now, because I still struggle. I'm still human. I still have feelings. I still have emotions. I still have problems. I still have, a life that I have to deal with on a daily basis, that it's not easy. And sometimes you just want to choose that quick fix. But I know that I have so much to lose now that I can't afford to do that. I have things that I have to live for. Whether it be for myself or my children, and, whatever else inspires me to keep going. So I
Absolutely.
think it's just, finding that thing that, you want to continue to fight for,
Yeah.
So.
What's your opinion on relapse? There's this thought process in the rehab detox, community of, relapse is part of the journey. What's your thought process on that? You're in that, sort of industry and in that community. Um, now kind of looking back and kind of viewing it from, 300 feet up,
Mhm.
you know, what's your take on it? What's your viewpoint? What's your opinion?
So, people do say that relapse is part of the journey, and and I mean, and that's fine. If it happens, in your journey, I think that most importantly is that, you pick yourself right back up and you keep going. Because, if you get too comfortable within that, because it's easy, to just say, hey, I'm gonna, pick up for the time being, and and numb, whatever it is at the moment that you're going through that you don't want to face, so it's easy to go ahead and make that decision. But then it's just like, what, if I make this one decision, then there's this that follows, because who's to say with that relapse that I'm going to stop there? That relapse might cause my life.
Yeah.
My thing was, pills, heroin, crack, whatever really I could get my hands on. It wasn't, like I could just have a drink or whatever and stop there. No, I was not going to stop. I was going to keep going. And so it was, and one was never enough. You know what
Wow.
I mean? So it's like, I'm scared to relapse, and I thank God that, I haven't, but I'm terrified because a lot of times when we do relapse and we go back to using, your body is not, it's not built to that tolerance, to that level anymore. So like that relapse could take me out, could cause my
Wow.
life, so
Wow.
it's not necessary. It's not necessary. If it happens, like I said, and most importantly, you play that tape through, and you know you stop. Because if it's like they say, feed that beast. That's also another term that I've heard, because it feels like that at times. So it's like, once I put that into my body, I'm scared that I just won't stop. you know
Absolutely. Yeah.
because that was my relief. That was my go-to. That was my way of shutting down and not having to worry about things around me. Right now, for instance, I'm, like I told you earlier, I'm trying to restore the relationship with my older kids. And it's hard, Sabrina. It's a challenge because, they've been raised one a certain way. And it's different for me. So having them now is a challenge for me. It's been very stressful. Um, it's been tough. So I've had, that feeling of wanting that relief, but I just know that I can't do it. I can't, because I'll mess up everything that I've worked so hard for, you know
100%.
but that's another thing that we as mothers and stuff and parents have to think of when we are in addiction. We don't only hurt and affect ourselves, we affect our loved ones, we affect our children, most importantly, because when they're at a young age, they don't understand really. But then once they get older,
Yeah.
and they have more knowledge of what's going on, and now my kids are able to remind me of everything that they remember, of everything that they, experienced, at the time I left them home by themselves because I needed to go out and get some drugs, or the time where, I carried both of them in a stroller because I needed to go down you know what I mean? Like they remember, and they hurt, and they bring these things up now, and I've made my amends, and I've made my apologies to them, and I've asked them, to forgive me, but it's going to take time. It's a process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love you being so open about that. Um, as far as, who you were then, as you're speaking about, and who you are now, What do you think are the biggest differences?
Well, I gotta say, most importantly, had to learn to love myself. I had to learn to value, who I am and love who I am and things because, the change obviously had to start here. It had to start here. It had to begin with me because no matter how much everyone else around me wanted me to change, Jessica had to want it for herself.
Yeah.
I can't really, put the blame on to, people. I can't put the blame on, my parents or my divorce or, you know, um, I have to I have to take that responsibility for, myself. And so that was really one thing for me was just first, taking like a really deep down soul searching time to, realize the things that make me happy, figure out who I am, what I want out of life, what do I want to see myself doing. And I'm 34 years old and I still don't have it all figured out.
Mhm.
But I know that if I continue to make the right choices, that those things will fall into place for me. I'm
Yeah.
still trying to discover who I am because I started at such a young age of 14 that, my life was just beginning. And, I didn't really, find out those things. Like I didn't know, what really makes Jessica happy? What really, I didn't know. I just didn't even know who I really was. So it was almost like I had to do like a complete reflection of who I am and what I desire. Not only the happy things, but also the things that, would upset me or cause me to want to, pick up again and use. And like I've had to sit down and write these things down and plan it all out, Um, so it's just really it's really about figuring yourself out, figuring who you are. And that's been a hard thing for me to do because I caused a lot of damage in my addiction, mentally and physically. The things that I exposed myself to, I felt disgusted. I didn't, I it was like I just was not. I did things that I, would have never imagined would ever have done, never would have thought that I would have ever done. If you asked, the 10-year-old me, I would have never said, "Oh, this is what my life is going to be,"
Yeah.
So it was really hard. As well as like, my dad at the time, he took a life insurance policy out on me because I was to the point where, my family thought that I wasn't going to make it. They thought that,
Mm.
I was going to die. I overdosed one night in a hotel room in Pensacola and on heroin. And I cannot tell you till this day how I woke up. When I think about it, and it's just crazy because I was literally in this room by myself, Miss Sabrina, and I had overdosed because when I woke up, I had completely urinated on myself.
Wow.
I was cold. I was just confused. Like I just didn't know what was going on. But I don't know. I don't
You
know.
just woke up.
I just woke up. I was
Wow.
out. I was completely out. And I just like woke up. And when I woke up, I was just like, I was like, what happened? But, all my fluids had come out. So that's like what really like told me, you you overdosed. You
Yeah.
were really out for the count. So it was scary. I've had, many scares along the way. There was times where I thought I was going to have to call the ambulance on myself because I just wouldn't stop. Like it was
Mm.
like there was just no stopping for me. I was like that was the first thing when I woke up in the morning. That was my first thing. I didn't care if I didn't brush my teeth. I didn't care if I didn't wash my face or wash my behind for that day. If I didn't have what I needed for that day to get going and and do what I had to do, it was like I was not doing anything. I
Wow.
had motivation, nothing, to really push me. So that was just what my life revolved around. That was just it for me.
Crazy.
Yeah.
As far as, your mental health, obviously, you backlashing to that point is, even bringing me to tears. How do you kind of deal with that? How do you keep yourself, mentally and emotionally, I guess, stable or healthy,
Hmm.
um, moving forward? Not only, you know, remembering or having flashes of things that happened to you, but also now you're having to feel. You can't
Hmm.
numb yourself anymore. So you speaking about your children and, dealing with the emotions that go along with that and the conversations and the communication that has to happen with that. How are you keeping yourself mentally healthy?
Well, to tell you the truth, so one of the first things that I had to do when I came out of jail, because so what the last time I was sentenced to 11 months in jail, and I was released in May 5 years ago. I told myself, I said, well, I had to change my people, my places, and my things. And it might sound cliche, but like that was my number one determination when I got out, was that I could not go back around those same people and those same places. One being because I knew that if I did, it wouldn't be too long before I would be right back into that cycle. Because, see, it wasn't really until I started surrounding myself around those things that I didn't, it wasn't really something that crossed my mind. You know how they say, you hang around a bad apple, you become a bad apple or
Mhm.
whatever. Well, like I truly believe that, because I just, I once I started to separate myself from those things, not only because of that, but because they were also triggers for me. Those are things, being around those people or those places and stuff would trigger those thoughts, in my mind, like, oh, I remember, being in this bathroom or being around this person doing this. And obviously, I knew that that wasn't going to be good for my recovery. So I had to completely separate myself and start over. At the time, I moved in with one of my best friends from high school. She took me in because when I got out of jail, I stayed 2 nights in a budget inn. It was a hotel, it was a motel, and this motel was the same motel that I used to use at, that I used to meet people at and stuff. So I knew I have to get out of here. My friend reached out to me and she said, I want you to come stay with me.
Wow.
So I came and I stayed with her and I completely started over. And that's why I say it's okay sometimes to have to start over. If you have to do it 5 times, by golly, you do it 5 times.
Yeah.
Because that was the best thing that I did for me. And the fact that my mother told me I will no longer be your crutch, was, I was angry at the time and I was hurt, but that was the best thing she did for me, Miss Sabrina, was to stop being that crutch for me. Because until I got on my own and realized that I have to fight for my life and fight for what I want, then I was never going to do it.
Yeah.
I was never going to do it because I knew that there was always still something to fall back onto.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, that we need to completely cut people off. What I'm saying is that at times we have to stop supporting people, when, we're in those stages in our lives. So it was those things that really did it for me. And when I went out to my friend's house, I started working, and obviously I had people helping me. Like I met this complete stranger. Let me tell you, I met a complete stranger at the store. And he said, and it was an older man, and I swear he was God sent. He was like my guardian angel, because when he said, I will pick you up for work and I will drop you off at the house, I said, well, wait a minute. I said, what's in this for you? Because I thought, that it was going to be like, I'll do this for you, you did this for me.
Yeah.
But it didn't even turn out like that. Like this
Wow.
guy would pick me up at 6 o'clock in the morning, take me to work. He was a retired man. He would actually get out there and work and put solar panels down with me for 12 hours a day and bring me
Wow.
back home. So I slowly started saving money. I got a car. I got my license back. I
Wow.
got offered to stay in a mobile home, a 2-bedroom mobile home. I got my daughter back because her first year, I wasn't, with her. So I got her back. And, we started living in this 2-bedroom mobile home for $250 a month.
Wow.
So that's why I said that when you start to make those changes in your life, things will happen for you. They
Yeah.
will. Because at times we look at it like, man, I could never start over. I can never do this. Like, how am I going to do this? Like, I've messed up so much. I have nothing. But it took time. But with every decision that I made, I just made sure that I was just going to make the right one. And I knew that everything would just fall into place. And so, like, I slowly, just kind of started making my way back up again. And, you know, um, I thought too, I wasn't ever going to get a good job because of my record. So I just worked waitressing jobs because, most restaurants, they hire you, they don't really get too much into your background. So, I was working as a waitress, and then I met Miss Diane, and has her own nonprofit organization, Shine Light Peer Services, here in Palaca, where I live. And so now I work as a peer specialist, and I get to help people, fight through their journeys. And I say that all because that's what helps me now too, because hearing them and hearing what they go through and their experiences and stuff like that helps me push forward, because I don't know that, who's to say, that I would still be clean all this time if I didn't have other people, if I wasn't in a place to where I can share my story and share my experiences and my hopes and stuff, because in return that pushes me forward. It's like a reminder for me really every day to be like, you know what, you can so easily be right back into the same situation that you was in if you don't continue to make the right choices. So it was really just kind of like, getting myself into a place to where, I can use my story, as a profession. A lot of things too are my spirituality. I have a relationship with my higher power. So I pray, I go to church and things, because like I said, that was rooted in me at a young age. So when I wanted to, change my life around, it was like I went back to those same things, to what I was taught. So it just kind of made like, like this full circle.
That's
And it's just my way of life now. That's how I cope.
that's
We do I don't really, I'm not gonna sit here and say that I do many meetings and AA and stuff like that. So I'm not really involved into like those type of meetings, but like my church and going to church and things like that, and having support from my family and my spiritual family has helped tremendously.
that's awesome. You had mentioned, your entire, career right now is based around, sharing your story and helping people. And, obviously you go to church. Is there anything else that you do to, to give back?
So right now, like we do so I do like volunteer, like we do things. So through my job we do things like in the community, like for instance we have like Narcan events and things like that. So um we kind of give back that way, because I don't know if you're aware, but right now there's been a high number of overdoses, because they are starting to put fentanyl into street drugs now. And that's killing people. It's killing people on the spot. It's taking several Narcans just to try to bring people back to life. So
Wow.
it's really, it's become a very big and dangerous situation for anybody. They're putting it in everything. So it's like, we get out there and we do things like this. We give out resources. Through my job, we can help people pay, court fines, maybe get their license back, maybe get them into housing. We also are connected with someone that helps people that are homeless. So, those doing those things are my way in giving back and saying, you know what, like, I never see myself, any better or any less, so it's like we're in this together. This is how I feel, we're in this together. And if I can just help do that with one life, you know what I mean? It makes me excited. It makes me happy when I can sit down with somebody and they come in, my office or whatever, or I meet them where they're at and they're like, listen, I'm going through this and I can, just help, you know, that does it for me, honestly. I don't know where I'd be sometimes if I was alone. I was just telling my coworker that the other day. I said, I don't know. I don't really know. Like, it really does, take support and love from other people as well. So, those are, my ways in giving back and to telling people, you're not alone. There are people that have been where you've been, if not worse. So if I can do it, you can do it. Obviously people will come from different backgrounds and things like that. So, and maybe people don't really have, a spiritual faith like I do, and that's fine.
Mhm.
I don't look at you any differently, but that's just what worked for me,
Mhm.
so.
That's great. How do you decide to show up for your world now?
Um, well, that's a good question. I, I mean, I do this, but honestly, I'm still trying to figure it out. There's so many things that I desire to do that I still need to push myself into doing. I want to create. I want to write a book. I want to create recovery apparel. There's this, there's many things yet that I still want to do. Like, I'd love to travel around the world, if I could, telling my story and stuff. So I'm not there yet, but these are things that I foresee into my future that I really, desire to do. So, right now I'm here, and and I feel like this is a good starting place for me to be, to gain experience and, do those things and get out there and stuff. So I'm hoping, that here in the near future though that I can do more.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
I see it. Like, I want, like, I've actually, I've wanted to like write a book and stuff for a long time. And, I want to be, on a stage in front of, women and men and, talk about, the deep, the deep down and dirty things, because see, that's what people relate to.
Yep.
It's not, really coming from like a textbook. It's not, just sitting there and, yeah, yeah, I hear you. No, it's like people want to know that, you've been there, what I'm going through, what I'm feeling, and I feel like that's what people relate to. It's really getting down to the deep and dirty and to the root of things and figuring it out together, to know, yeah, this is what's going on, and this is what, has caused me um to get to this point in my life, because it doesn't just happen overnight. It doesn't, like I said, I did not just wake up and say, hey, this is the life that I'm, want for myself. It really, it just built up over time, and when I discovered it and I started experiencing it, it just seemed to work for the time being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as far as all of those dreams, I could see all of that. You have such a vibrancy and such a beautiful way of speaking and telling your story. You can do all of those things.
Thank you.
You can do all of those things. Like I said, or like you said, it's just doing the next thing. So
Hmm.
just keep
Yes.
doing
And
the
that's
next thing.
why when I was so like, I was so when I seen, your podcast and stuff, and that's why I did that. This is today. This is honestly the first time that I've done something like this, and and I feel like it's only the beginning, and I'm hoping that it's only the beginning because that's what I just foresee, and I'm grateful that people like you create a platform, like this for us, to be able to get out there to other people and let them know that they're not alone. That, because a lot of times we think, am I the only one really going through this? Like, it feels that way,
Yeah.
because you isolate, so you isolate, you become, you get into like your own space, your own bubble. And it's like, it's hard. It's hard to let people in. And so when you can just hear and know that someone else has been where you've been, like that right there is like, I feel like the beginning of, change for anybody.
Absolutely. You're
So
100% right. 100% right. I want to ask you, I know that a lot of your motherhood happened when you weren't sober. What is it like now being a sober mother? How does that feel?
it's very so you're right. So when I got married at a young age, right? I got married at 21, and I had my first two kids back to back within like the first year of like engagement, marriage, and like in a year.
Wow.
So it happened very quickly, and I wasn't prepared. I wasn't in a place of I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared physically. I wasn't, I just wasn't ready. I mean, it happened. And so at the time, my addiction was still kind of like a secret. People really didn't know. The
Oh, wow.
guy at the time that I married didn't know. Like he just didn't know. So I was like holding this in for a while in the beginning to where people really didn't know what was going on with me. And so it wasn't until I started pawning things within my home at the time that he noticed I had a problem. So that was kind of like the beginning of everything for me. He Baker acted me. So I went to detox, I went to rehab for the first time, and then I was put into a woman's shelter. So when I was put into a woman's shelter, I still had my two children with me. And but he came one weekend and he said, "Hey, I want to get the girls for a weekend." So I said, "Okay." He said, "I'm gonna take them to Jacksonville." So I said, "Okay." I said, "But you're gonna bring them back, right?" He said, "Yeah, I'm bringing them back." He didn't bring them back. He didn't bring my kids back. And
Wow.
that right there was like another turning point for me because that hurt me so
Yes.
bad, and because I felt like I just felt like I failed like tremendously, when I lost my kids. And, even though I look back now and I think, that was probably the best thing for them, but that was just like another pain that I had to deal with that I didn't want to. So, things obviously got worse for me because it was like, I don't want to face this pain. I don't want to have to deal with this. So it was like, that's when, I was constantly just looking for something to numb that.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of the beginning of it for me. And so I spent a very long time without my children. And I started kind of reuniting with them when I was in rehab, but like 4 or 5 years had already gone by. Like time was really flying. Time was not on my side. And that's another thing that when you're in addiction, it's like you lose track of time. And when you look back, you realize that so much time has gone by and that you have wasted so much time. And then, and that's a reality check, right? Because you're like, man, I just wasted like 5 years of my life.
Yep.
And so it was like it was really hard in the beginning. When I got out of jail the last time, like I said, I fought for custody of my youngest daughter. I so they were with their father. So those two kids were with their dad. And I ended up getting pregnant again with my youngest daughter, Jalea. And when I had her, the first year she spent with her dad while I was in jail. When I got out, I fought for her. I fought for custody. I won custody of her and I got her back. So, I was able with her to get that experience. And obviously in the beginning it wasn't easy for me because, I wasn't, like, I knew I had children, but how can I say, like, I never was able to create like that mother daughter bond with any of
Got
my
it.
kids.
Yeah.
So it's like I really didn't know like how to be a mom. Like I really didn't, like I didn't at first have that connection with her. And I can't sit here and lie and tell you that I did, because I didn't. I didn't know how to care for her at first. I didn't know how to love her at first. I didn't know how to connect and bond and play and do those things that, children need growing up. So in the beginning, it was very hard. It
Yeah.
was hard because I didn't know how to connect. Like I knew she was my child, but I didn't have like that connection that I feel like you get, when your child is born and you hold them and,
Mhm.
and you create that bond. It was like I didn't have that with any of my kids in the beginning. So it's been hard. It's been hard. It's almost like having to retrain my mind and trying to be like, telling myself, these are my kids. I need to love them. I need to comfort them. I need to nurture them. So it's like a constant like reminder to myself. So it's hard. It's hard, but you know, um, with time and my boyfriend and things like that, he's there and he's been very supportive. So at times in the beginning when like I couldn't be like that playful parent and stuff, I kind of had someone to help me, to push me. Like if I couldn't, he did it. So I feel like just watching and I even read a couple of books
Yes.
too. Like, I even did that. My brother, he wrote a parenting book, him and his wife. I bought his book and I read it. So I just did things like that to kind of just retrain myself and retrain my mind and stuff. And I mean, it's worked. It's worked. I still struggle, like I said, at times, because my parents were not like this. Let's sit down and play and and do this together for a couple of hours. So I didn't really have that type of bond. So now having to try to create that with my children, it's been a bit of a challenge, but we're working on it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of your brother and writing a book, do you have any other mentors? Do you have any mentors that you kind of look up to or go to, videos, books?
Yeah, I do. I listen to actually a few. So he's one obviously, but I also listen to like a few different like podcast people that I have. One is Real Talk Kim.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard of her, but
No.
she's Real Talk Kim, and so she's also someone that came from like a background of alcohol and being a PK and things like that. So I felt like when I started listening to her, I felt like I related to her a lot. So I'm kind of connected to like her podcast, and she's wrote some books and stuff. So there are people that really inspire me. And then obviously when I got introduced to what you do and things like that, I listened to your podcast and things like that as well. So I mean that's very essential, for
Mm.
me. It really is, because sometimes we need, or I need, that extra like motivation, that extra empowerment. So that's what I do. And then other times, honestly, I might just talk to my pastor, or, I really love music. And so I tend to listen to, music that just kind of helps change the vibe, the mood for me a little bit at times when I need that. Um, so, yeah,
That's great. That's great. This has been so amazing.
thank
This
you.
has been so amazing. Oh, um, I want to kind of close up with there's so many individuals right now that are going through what you went through. And they're either looking to numb themselves or they're looking to party, but it's dangerous. It's a dangerous. line to walk. What is your advice for females right now who are either listening live or listening on the replay as far as walking that path of,
Mhm.
diving into drugs and diving into alcohol innocently? I'm sure when
Mhm.
you were first dabbling, you weren't dabbling thinking I'm going to get addicted to this stuff and this is going to be my life. It's innocent and
Yeah.
it's fun, or it's you're trying to run away from something for an hour or two. What's your advice to the females out there that are, walking this scary tightrope right now?
Right. Um, so, you know, one day I was kind of just, you know, I guess talking to myself, and, what came to mind one time was that every day I wake up with a chance and a choice.
Mhm.
And, so I think that, we don't have like a life manual. You know what I mean? We don't, there's nothing that says, this is how, you're supposed to live your life. There's nothing out there. So I think that it's just, it was very important for me to, how can I say, like I said earlier, to figure out um what it is that we love in life, that we want to see for ourselves. Because I mean, we all have some sort of dream, right? We all have some sort of something that we want to do, and something that maybe drives us and inspires us and stuff. And I think that when we are in a place to where we might feel like I don't know. I mean, I could say, like, so the biggest mistake I made was pushing away and isolating. And so I feel like that if I, in the beginning, would have, accepted, that help and that support and that love, that maybe it wouldn't have dragged out as long as it did. So I feel like just not really isolating, maybe being honest with yourself. Maybe at times we need to like ask for help if we need help. um it's just kind of just finding those things that just works for you. And always just keeping in mind that we are, our life matters. We matter. We are loved. And it's kind of a hard question. I don't really know. It's just like I I don't I don't know. It wasn't the so when I so when I did that, obviously, it was like a temporary relief, and it wasn't like it didn't help. Like, it didn't help my problems. It didn't solve my problems. So at the end of the day, I still had those same things and those same issues that I had to deal with, that I had to face. So doing those things didn't take anything away. It might have helped for the time being, but in the end, it just only made things worse for me. So I had to realize like that wasn't the answer. Um, and so I think it's just kind of just really doing like a self inventory of, ourselves, and just kind of figuring out what it is for ourselves that, will work. I don't know. I wish I could answer that better, but I don't know.
It's
I,
perfect. It's
yeah,
perfect. It's your answer.
yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate all the time that you took to sit down with me and share this. This was unbelievable. And
Hmm.
um, I hope and I know that, all the things that you're striving for as far as, pushing the word out there with sobriety and being a good person and being your best, highest self, um, you'll get to all that stuff as long as you keep doing stuff like this.
Hmm.
You grab on, you just grab on and you do. It's all action, and that's what
Right.
you're doing right now. Is you saw an opportunity and you took action and you did all the
Hmm.
steps to get us to where we are now. And as long as you just keep doing that with all of the things that you're looking to do, it'll all fall into place. I promise you. So I thank you for sharing your story. I thank you for
Thank
being
you.
so open and so vulnerable. Do you have any closing thoughts before I close?
Um, No, really, I really just, like I said, I thank you for this opportunity. Um, it was such a pleasure, and although like I was super nervous in the beginning, I think that it went very well. I'm happy. I hope that what we've said here today can help change and impact someone's life, because at the end of the day, that's what we do it for. So I'm always here if anybody ever just wants to kind of look for me and talk to me or whatever. I'm always available. So
Right.
thank you so much.
That's great. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. And without individuals like you sharing your story and being open with your journey, this platform wouldn't even exist. So I
Mm.
appreciate you for taking the time out of your day to sit with me. For those of you watching now, and for those of you watching on the replay, thank you so much for listening in. And anybody that you know who has a similar journey to Jessica's, or is on a journey similar to Jessica's, make sure you share. The whole reason why these females come on and they share their story is to reach others. So even if it doesn't necessarily resonate with you fully, if you know somebody who it will resonate with, please share it. Email, social media, and get the word out there. This is the type of stuff that really inspires and helps people take a different journey in their life, so it doesn't have to be quite as difficult as it's been for us. So thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Do something awesome today. Much love.